Welcome once again to Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller. A few months back, I showed Walk a Crooked Mile. Today, we speed things up with Drive a Crooked Road, released by Columbia in 1954. Mickey Rooney stars as a pint-sized grease monkey with dreams of one day racing in the French Grand Prix. But of course, he needs big money to get a leg up on those dreams. And that's where the crooked part comes in. A couple of slick and shady operators, played by Kevin McCarthy and Jack Kelly, have a plan to hook our hero into driving a getaway car for a bank job they've got planned. The bait, of course, is a woman, a dyed-in-the-silk femme fatale. Now, if this sounds familiar, that's because you've seen the 1964 version of The Killers, which is pretty much the exact same story, enacted by John Cassavetes and Angie Dickinson. In the early 1950s, Mickey Rooney was at a crossroads in his movie career. He'd been in pictures since the silent era, making shorts as Mickey Maguire when he was only 7 years old. Now Rooney was 34 and had clearly outgrown his persona as the eternally buoyant and brash boy next door. A performer can only feature that image for so long. And at this point, Rooney was like a sputtering race car, one that needed an overhaul to stay on the track. So just like film noir saved Joan Crawford's career in the 1940s, crime pictures were Rooney's salvation in the 50s. He'd already made a terrific 1950 thriller called Quicksand. He was a car mechanic in that one, too. And after that, he made a strange crime-infused musical for MGM called The Strip, released in 1951. Also in that early 50s mix were a pair of comedies, Sound Off and All Ashore, written by newcomer Blake Edwards, who was once Rooney's roommate. They were directed by Rooney's good pal, one-time actor Richard Quine. The three comrades decided to craft something that would radically change Rooney's image and expand the audience's perception of him. The character he plays here, Eddie Shannon, is described by one co-worker as a guy who doesn't get with it in the dame department, which must have thrown viewers for a loop since by the time Drive a Crooked Road was released, everybody knew that Mickey Rooney was on his fourth marriage, two of those being to starlets Ava Gardner and Martha Vickers. In real life, Rooney had no problem getting with it. But here the actor shows his range by convincingly playing a guy who's never been with a woman. That's called a stretch. The woman in this passion play is an archetypal femme fatale, luring an innocent guy to the dark side. She's played by Diane Foster, a 26-year-old Canadian in her biggest role to date. Foster makes a vivid impression, looking and especially sounding like Rita Hayworth. Perhaps not a coincidence, since Columbia was Hayworth's movie home, and it was common for studios to groom replacements. The similarity is striking enough that she could have been Hayworth's stunt double, although I'm not sure what that would entail. Blake Edwards' script, fleshed out from a story by James Benson Nablo, is a straightforward crime plot with humor steadily sprinkled throughout, although I use humor reservedly when it comes to Rooney's garage mates, played by Harry Landers, Dick Crockett, Jerry Paris, and Paul Picerni. Their sexist banter, clearly written as mockery, is actually worse than dated. It's not funny. It's the villains of the piece, McCarthy and Kelly, who get the best lines, enough to make us wonder if they're working up a Vegas lounge act. And this is what makes the film unique. Rooney isn't the comic. In fact, he's not the least bit entertaining, and for once, he's not trying to be. The movie was sold as a vehicle for the new and great Mickey Rooney, which sounds a lot better than the sad, lonely, and lovelorn Mickey Rooney, which would have been more apt. And of course, it's what makes him the perfect patsy in a noir caper. If you ever wondered what happened to that spunky Andy Hardy kid, here is your answer. From 1954, Drive a Crooked Road.